Most people believe competition is about effort. Work harder, push more, outperform the people around you. The assumption is simple. If you do more, you get more. But that assumption ignores something more important: where you are competing. Because effort does not exist in isolation. It exists inside a position. And position determines how that effort is valued. Two people can work equally hard, but if they are positioned differently, their outcomes will not match. One operates in a crowded environment. The other operates where demand exceeds supply. One competes with many. The other competes with few. This is not a difference in effort. It is a difference in structure. And structure determines leverage. When many people offer the same value, that value becomes replaceable. And when something is replaceable, it loses pricing power. It becomes easier to substitute, easier to ignore, easier to undervalue. This is what happens in crowded positions. Effort increases, but outcomes stay constrained. More people enter the same space, more competition forms, more pressure builds. And the system compresses everyone inside it, not because they lack ability, but because they share the same position, the same path, the same offer, the same direction. This creates a predictable outcome. Effort becomes the only variable left. So people try to increase it. They work longer, they push harder. But the structure does not change. And because the structure does not change, the outcome does not expand. It stays within the limits of that position. This is why many people feel stuck. They are increasing effort inside a fixed structure, trying to outwork a system that is designed to keep outcomes narrow. Not intentionally, but structurally, because crowded positions behave in predictable ways. They reduce differentiation, they reduce leverage, they reduce upside. And when those elements are reduced, effort alone cannot compensate. It can only maintain position, not transform it. This is the quiet limitation most people never question. They focus on how hard they are working instead of where that work is being applied. But where you stand determines what your effort can become. And if the position is constrained, no amount of effort will expand it, because effort does not create leverage. Position does. And until that changes, the outcome remains limited. Pause for a second. If you're still listening, it's probably because this didn't feel exaggerated. That's intentional. If this way of thinking matters to you, like the video, subscribe. We'll keep going deeper. Position does more than affect outcomes. It shapes perception. And perception determines value. Not in theory, but in how the system responds to you. The same skill can be priced differently. The same product can be valued differently. The same person can be treated differently. Not because the substance changed, but because the position did. Position changes context, and context changes interpretation. A service offered in a crowded marketplace becomes a commodity. The same service offered in a scarce environment becomes specialized. One competes on price. The other commands it. One is compared. The other is selected. This is not about effort. It is about placement. Where you operate determines how you are perceived, and perception directly affects leverage. When something is perceived as common, it must compete. When something is perceived as scarce, it attracts. This is why two similar outcomes can produce very different results, because one exists in a position where demand exceeds supply. The other exists where supply overwhelms demand. And that imbalance changes everything. Demand creates pull. Supply creates pressure. When demand is high and supply is limited, value rises. When supply is high and demand is low, value compresses. This is not subjective, it is structural. Position determines which side of that equation you sit on. And most people never question it. They improve skills, they increase effort, they refine execution, but they remain in the same position. The same market, the same structure, the same competitive environment. So the outcome remains constrained. Because the system is not responding to effort alone. It is responding to positioning. This is where leverage begins to appear. Leverage is not just about tools or capital. It is about being in a position where effort produces amplified results, where small inputs create larger outputs, where value is recognized faster, where demand meets you instead of the other way around. That only happens in the right position, and the right position is rarely the most crowded one. It is the one where fewer people are operating and more value is required, where differentiation exists, where scarcity exists, where access is limited. Because those conditions change how the system treats you. It stops comparing you. It starts valuing you. And once that shift happens, effort begins to scale differently. Not because you are working harder, but because you are positioned where effort is amplified. That is the second layer. Not just where you stand, but how the system sees you when you stand there. Once position becomes clear, the strategy changes. Because the goal is no longer to compete harder, it becomes to position differently. Most people try to win inside crowded environments. More effort, more output, more pressure. But crowded environments compress outcomes. They limit upside, they reduce leverage, they make differentiation difficult. So the strategy cannot be to push harder within the same structure. It has to be to change the structure itself. That means moving toward positions where supply is lower, demand is higher, access is more limited, where fewer people are competing but more value is being exchanged. This is where leverage begins to appear consistently, not through intensity, but through alignment with the right conditions. Position determines how effort behaves. In the wrong position, effort is absorbed. In the right position, effort expands. This is why positioning is not a surface decision. It is structural. It determines how the system interacts with you over time, whether you are compared or selected, whether you are replaced or retained, whether your value is negotiated or accepted. These outcomes are not random. They are the result of position, and over time, those differences compound. Small advantages in position become large differences in outcome, because each interaction reinforces the same structure. Better positioning leads to better opportunities. Better opportunities lead to better outcomes. And those outcomes strengthen your position further. This creates a loop, not of effort, but of alignment, where the system begins to work with you instead of against you. This is where control starts to appear, not control over everything, but control over direction. Because you are no longer reacting to the structure, you are choosing where to stand within it. And that choice determines the trajectory that follows. Over time, positioning does something effort cannot do. It changes the path entirely. not by increasing what you do, but by changing where that effort is applied. And once that shift is made, the system no longer feels like something to fight. It becomes something to navigate, quietly, deliberately, structurally. If this shifted how you see positioning, subscribe. Like this if it clarified something.